For this project, you should have a beaker, 200 milliliters of water, some red dye, and a pipette. Place the pipette filled with red dye into the bottom of the beaker. Gently squeeze out a few drops so that it lays in the bottom of the beaker. Carefully pull the pipette out. Try to leave most of the dye at the bottom. Take a candle that hopefully you have lit nearby and put it under the part of the beaker that is extended over the table. You should start to see the dye and the water that's being heated rise. This happens because the molecules are energized by the addition of heat. They start moving around rapidly, bouncing into each other, hitting off of each other, expanding the space between the molecules, and therefore that packet of molecules becomes less dense and rises. As it heads towards the top of the beaker, you can see that it moves to the sides and then starts to drop down. This happens because the energized molecules hit into other molecules that are cooler, and energy flows from high energy levels to low energy levels. So it starts to heat the water nearby. When it does that, it starts to cool. And when it cools, the fast-moving molecules slow down. They don't bounce into each other as much, and so the space between them actually gets smaller. Therefore, the volume decreases of that packet, and it becomes more dense and drops down. Watch the water as it floats through the beaker. The dye helps us to see what the water actually is doing, even if the dye wasn't there. As long as the candle remains under the beaker, more energy keeps getting added to the beaker. You should continue to see the dye float around, and this will happen until the dye has been diffused throughout the entire beaker and you see some light red water. But you should know that even if everything's red, that convection cycle still continues within the beaker as long as the candle remains there. Remember that convection is the transfer of heat by use of a fluid, which is either a liquid or a gas. In this case, we have a liquid. The liquid takes the heat from the heat source, the less dense material rises, goes over to areas that are cooler, transfers the heat over to those cooler areas, becomes more dense, and sinks. This convection current works in a loop to move the heat from one area to heat up another area. And now you understand what a convection current is.